Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of What Drives You. I am one of your co-hosts, Stan Windhorn, and with me, as always, or almost always anyway, is my good buddy and co-host, Carl Bauer. Carl, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back, Mr. Shaun Raines.
Yeah,
Thank you
man,
very
it's
much,
always good to
gentlemen.
have Shaun on the show.
I'm happy to be here. It's good to see your faces.
Um, so Shaun is just, I don't know. What don't you do, Shaun? What don't you do and what don't you do well? You seem to have just like so many cool things that you do. But
I don't know. Well, not maybe. I really feel very grateful and very blessed for just the who I am, how I'm made, how the good Lord made me because my interests and the things that I spend my time on, the more I lean into them, the more they don't really feel like they are um anything but joy, just stuff. So, I
yeah,
for the audience, Stan is setting that up because when we were kind of in the green room before we started recording, we were talking a lot about music and I was
hmm
sharing a lot of things there. And that is a big passion of mine. I feel like I was born with a song in my heart. I love music so dearly. I love to listen to it. I love to play it. I do play live. I love to sing. I stole the Just Keep Swimming line from Dory, and I have a shirt that says Just Keep Singing because I just love to
yeah.
sing. So I don't know.
Well,
I'm sure there's a lot
you're
of things I'm not good at. I'm not good at quantum physics.
what you slacker. Well, I think you and I do have in common that we've got a lot of different creative outlets. So does Carl. And man, that sure is what makes life joyful for me is having these different creative outlets. But that's not why we're here on this episode of What Drives You. What we're going to be talking about today is earlier this month in early February. Both Shaun and Carl attended something called the National Automobile Dealers Association. It is the largest trade show for automobile dealers. Um, I have gone many, many times, and I'm okay with the fact that I didn't go this year because especially if you're working in a vendor booth, it can be a bit of a grind standing in that booth all day long. But what I want to talk about a little bit is maybe some of the takeaways of the things that both of you saw there. Carl, I'll start with you, man. W- Out of all the things that you saw at NADA this year, what were some of the things that stood out to you? Maybe something new that you were like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a fun. I got to see Shaun right at the end, so we were both kind of wiped out. That was part of the impetus of having this episode and having him join us. We were going to have a couple other attendees join us, but I would say, and we will spend probably most of our episode on this, is two letters, A and I.
Yeah.
Because it was freaking everywhere there. Now, everyone has some kind of sprinkle of it from like we are all AI all the time to hey, we have our old clunky antiquated product and we're going to sprinkle some AI into it. So that's really what caught my eye. Shaun, I don't. Shaun had the blessing and the flexibility, I think, a little bit of being like contributing to some other groups and businesses and companies because that's what he does, enhances other people's businesses. So he got a little more freedom than I did. I was kind of at the booth, but Shaun, what was your kind of perception or takeaway?
You're absolutely right that AI was, and I think everyone knew going into it that it was going to feel like an AI show. It was very dominated by people talking about artificial intelligence. And you're right on the money. My assessment was the same. There are some companies that have been in the business for a long time, legacy brands that have injected AI into their existing tech, and that's certainly, in some cases, not necessarily a bad thing. In others, it is. It's horrible. It's just putting a wrapper on something. It's like it's not really. And so there are still people that are taking advantage of the trend of the AI conversation, even though what they do is at best maybe advanced automation and not really AI.
An
Um,
autoresponder, is that what you mean by automation?
Yeah, could be, or it could be a really complex sequence of things that, if this, then that, right? So, some of the first, even like kind of voice agents were like that. For some of the first chat bots were like that. You could design. I did this for clients, a handful of years ago before AI was what it is now, where you could configure a bot. This probably still exists in their platform, but I'm guessing they've updated. But I don't work with Zoho anymore. But Zoho is an enterprise platform that has a whole plethora of tools for a business to um, utilize a CRM tool, uh, marketing automation tool. Like there's just a whole bunch of email marketing tool all built into one suite. And they had a function in there where you could configure a bot that you could deploy onto your website. And that bot would basically be on the back end built with the logic of what you wanted it to do and how you wanted it to answer. But it was very much built based on the inputs. So somebody did the if this, and the bot would do that. Give them a few choices and they could walk through. That's one example of something that's more automation rule based versus AI, where there's a whole plethora of intelligence that it draws from and is able to have its own conversation based on what's going on.
Yeah. Well, already we're getting started with some exciting things. Carl used the word impetus, and you've used plethora twice. So we're already starting off with really great words with this episode. But no, I'm kidding. So both of you guys know that I'm working with a company now that is one of the many that are in the automotive space and providing AI solutions. What's your thoughts? And the challenge I've run into is, even though I do believe that this company is one of the leaders and has some of the best tools out there, there's not much I can say about it that doesn't sound like what every other AI solution out there is saying. Are you guys with me on this one? They all kind of say that they can all do the same stuff. How do you differentiate? How do you know the difference when everybody can kind of say the same thing?
That's a great question. And I think that you are sharing with your audience the new red ocean, right? We talk about, in fact, I have the little mini version of it right here, blue ocean strategy concept,
Mm,
red ocean versus blue ocean. In automotive, an easy target is website providers. That's been a red ocean for a long time, fully saturated, right? So there's not a whole lot of new rooftops that get stood up every single year. When they do, they're usually belonging to somebody who's already made a choice. So you're just going to end up with the same website provider that owner may already have in place. So it's not really it. Well, it's not at all a place where website providers could get excited about the future. There's nothing for them, right? It's a
right.
bloodbath.
Everybody's
Well,
everybody's got what they're going to have.
yeah.
Yeah.
But your question about how do you differentiate, that is a great question for website providers. It's also great for people in the AI space, depending on the niche that you belong in with whatever you do with AI. And where you're at, that yeah, there are a lot of companies that are in that space now. It seems like there seems to be more every single day, and there's been a whole lot of investment out of Silicon Valley into companies that do this. I'm not going to name names on the show, but there's a whole bunch of them that are out there that have the same claim. The message sounds very similar. So the point of differentiation, I think, goes back to what it's always been for people, and that's well, it may come down to these things all kind of do the same thing, and you're going to make a choice based on the people who have more experience and maybe just the kind of people and the culture of the company that you're working with. And
Mm,
that can be very difficult for companies to actually showcase because it comes back to, well, how well are the personal brands or the corporate brand established? There are companies that have been out there for decades that still don't really have a an affinity around their brand, meaning people just are really drawn to it and they love it and they would rather have their eyes scooped out than to go with any other provider. That's the kind of
hmm.
loyalty that you're trying to build. But differentiation, I think, anytime that the ocean starts to get red, for me, it's usually who has more experience so that they have proof that they could show this is what happens. And then also the quality of people that I'm going to be working with.
Yeah. Interesting, Sean. And I'm not trying to turn this into any kind of a commercial or anything like that, but one of the things that I lean on when I'm sharing with dealers the AI solutions that we have AI is basically as smart as it's been trained to be. And we're one of the few in the space that has been in the business of setting appointments for dealerships for a long, long time. I mean, I heard the number that some of what trained this AI was over 100 million real live conversations that human beings had back and forth to set appointments,
Mm.
as opposed to some really smart Silicon Valley guys got together and know how to build a slick AI tool, but they've never set an appointment or sold a car before.
Hmm.
Both of you guys weigh in on that. Do you think that is a significant differentiator, or is it just another talking point?
I think it's real, Stan. I mean, there's another project that I'm working on that I think you two both know about. That's a document AI OCR solution, and
Mm,
the only reason I believe in its capabilities is because it's looked at millions and millions and millions of documents. So it has an advantage over the three of us going on Bolt, which Shaun just showed us, and creating this idea, and it's got no database of document recognition, right? So that's a huge part of it. I also think I read a book a while ago, Shaun. I don't know if you and I talked about this, called Zero to One. And it's really
Read it.
about, have you seen that book?
I've read it.
Yeah. So basically, Stan, the premise, I think it's Peter Thiel wrote it.
Yep.
Basically,
Yep.
it's when you are the first to market in a new initiative, a new product, a new niche, that's when you're going to make the most money. When you are the second person or the 10th person or the 100th, you're just compressing margin, right? You're really not. It's kind of the true car thing back in the day that a lot of people thought true car was a race to the bottom, which in reality it wasn't. But it's that differentiator that is a little bit scary to me. So if your company or a company has something that's different, unique, whether it's outbound calls, inbound calls, texting with a voice, like just make it different so that you're not 1 to 2, you're the 0 to 1, right? You're the
Mm.
first to market with a new thing. Like Shaun was showing us a product earlier, which maybe he'll share down the road with us. That is, I mean, no one has this. He is 0 to 1, and I think it's going to be a friggin' huge success and a unique thing in not only a niche market in what he built, but applies to every industry and every business that's out there in America or in the world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That will be something that we'll share in the future for sure. Stan, I would say one thing that you have, and I think that you are careful not to you drop names even where you work, but I know where that is, and so I would say this specific to where you are in contrast to the competitors, especially the new ones that have entered the market. There's this metaphor or analogy for, who do you want to do your brain surgery? The guy who's, done two or three, or the guy who's done two or 3,000. Not that they're not both qualified, but I think if you're given the option, you're always going to choose the people that have the ability to demonstrate that experience over a long period of time. And so for legacy companies that were first in category, it's dependent on them to make sure that they, of course, update their positioning statement to the market, because new entrants always come up with, not that they're good, most of them are horrible, but they're coming up with some sort of new message, new narrative, new positioning statement into the marketplace. Although they're selling something that's identical, it feels like it's fresh. It feels like it's new. Well, our agents sound better, or our whatever, like they're saying something. But can they prove that even if an agent sounds more human than someone else's that doesn't sound as human, does it actually accomplish a better result? I'm sure some of them would say, yeah, but you have to prove that. I
mm,
still would come back to, if I'm the person in the marketplace with more experience, I've done that surgery, I've done that thing so many more times. That's where people will draw confidence from, because you're already a thought leader in the space. You just can never allow that to be taken from you, because as Carl says, that whole 0 to 1, hired guns agency, my company does, I have this conversation with people all the time. What number are you in your category? Are you number one? When people think of whatever it is you do, are you the number one thought of entity or a choice in your category? And most people never say that. They're like, I don't even know. And I say, you need to know because if you're not in the top three, you're not even in consideration at all. So then my question is, so what are you doing for that 95 or more percent of the market that isn't even shopping for whatever it is you sell today, but will be in the future so that you are in one of those top three places so that you're at least considered? And if you can reach the number one spot, to Carl's point and what Peter Thiel wrote in Zero to One, you're going to make more money than everybody else that comes into the market.
Makes sense. Well, I don't want to have this whole conversation. I know AI was the big leader at NADA, but and I don't want to have the whole show just about AI. What else? Was there anything else that really stood out for either one of you, other than the giant ocean of AI stuff there? Was there anything that you went, oh, that's different, that's new, or maybe an existing company had something that they displayed in a better way than you've ever seen before? What caught your attention, Carl?
I think for me there was some brands that merged technologies or merged services. There's a brand out there called Informative. They've cobbled together some different companies, merged and repackaged, rebranded. So there were a couple of those out there that I thought were interesting. Um, it still amazes me. And Shaun, I don't know, every time I go, this is probably my 10th or I don't know, between 10 and 15 NADAs. The size and scope of it. I didn't even get over to the other hall. Just how big the automotive space is, and yet
Did
how
it feel
small it
bigger
is,
than
right?
past ones?
Uh, I don't know about attendance, but I think maybe square footage wise, it's got to be one of the I think they said at the end this is their largest. So maybe they're just talking about square footage, like people who rented space from them or
Maybe.
bought space from them is the largest. But
How
I
was the attendance
think it was
compared to
okay. I
other
didn't hear the
years?
final number yet. I think it was up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the final number was. There's thousands, I know. It was very well attended. One of the things I wrote in my NADA recap article that I posted on LinkedIn last week was it really did feel like the industry was hungry for a rebound after last year was such a catastrophe because of the inclement weather in New Orleans. Many dealers just didn't even go. They had the same issue with travel that they couldn't get there because of this ice storm that rolled through. A lot of vendors jumped through every hoop they possibly could. I mean, there were stories of people all over social media that were from different companies meeting at the same time in Houston and then driving from there, and just they were come hell or high water. People were
Yeah.
vendors, especially trying to get there, but it was kind of a ghost town on the floor. You'd see the pictures, and a lot of people tried to strategically take their selfies in front of their booth and make it look like it was a success, but it was largely probably a massive waste of money that CFOs probably were driven crazy about.
Yeah.
This year, the energy felt electric, I guess, is it did. You could tell that people were very ready, excited. And so I mean, there was a huge line, big pack of dealers waiting at the doors of the expo floor before it opened.
Wow.
And I'm sure that's happened before, but now with, all of the different media sources we have that can show that, it was very much on display. I will say that it wasn't just an AI show for me. There were some elements of the show that I thought were kind of interesting. People just trying to also talk about like where we are in the industry in terms of, how many cars are we going to sell in 26 with the
Mm.
affordability crisis. And there's always so many things going on politically and geopolitically that I think are interesting. I kind of wish there was even a little bit more of that than just the AI is going to solve every single problem. there is a there's still a big AI literacy problem in the retail side of the business, and that's not to say that's not a slight on dealers at all. They've always been inundated with brand new technology where it's oftentimes solutions looking for problems, and the dealers don't yet know if they have the problem that people are trying
Yeah,
to sell them a solution for.
yeah.
Um, but I had a few clients that exhibited there for the very first time, and all of them, um, I think I like to take a little credit because I advise my clients strongly and confidently about trade shows and how much they can be a massive waste of money. But if you go strategically with a plan, you'll probably have you'll like your outcome better. And all of my clients that went, that was the case. They actually did put some things in pipeline. A couple of them did actually have deals that came from the show that were commitments at the show, and all real excited about that. And then for me personally, there also was I wasn't anticipating a whole lot of this, but I had a lot of different meetings set up, and every single one of them turned into pipeline for me as well. A couple of them they're about to be wrapped up, and the appetite for smarter marketing was I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Nice. Let, you touched on something. So I've been to NADA. Most of them I've been to have been in Las Vegas. I went to one that was in San Francisco and either one or two in New Orleans. And I certainly, at least it felt different to me. Like the ones, besides the one that was a year ago in New Orleans when there was the big weather problem, I never felt that it was as well attended. In fact, I think the ones that seem to be the best attended are Las Vegas, and I've got some theories why that might be. But do you guys have any thoughts on that on NADA and where they decide to host them and if you could advise them, what would you say? Sean's grinning. What do you think, Carl?
I mean, Sean's probably going to say similar to me. I know why they're trying to do it. They're lobbying for their communities and the tax dollars and the travel dollars and the spends and all the rest. But there is just no place in the world that's set up for conventions like Vegas. It's cheap to get there, it's cheap to stay there, and there's just so much to do. I think they should always do it in Vegas. That's my opinion.
How much of the what they get to do when the trade show is closed at the end of the day, there's so many things to do in Vegas. How much of that do you think drives the attendance?
Well,
A
I
lot.
think that yeah, corporate parties happen after the event on every night of NADA, no matter what city it's in. Um, I saw the Black Crows play a private party that Dealer.com paid for in New Orleans several
Yeah.
years ago, right? And it's surreal when you walk into an event like that and you see other people you know from the industry and literally the Black Crows, not a tribute to the Black Crows, the Black
Oh yeah.
Crows are playing. That's one of countless bands I've seen for free on the dime of really the dealers, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
Cox Automotive in San Francisco rented, if I don't know if it's still AT&T ballpark, but where the Giants play, a
Yeah, I
Major
was
League
there.
Baseball stadium, center field, they have Trombone Shorty, Greg Allman, and Grace Potter. Three really known artists
Yeah. That was a
playing. They
fun
have
time.
you were out there when they had a Ferris wheel in left field,
Uh-huh. I
two or
played ping
three.
pong on third base. They had a
Yeah,
ping pong
so
table there. Yeah, that was fun.
multiple different food types if you didn't want to eat ballpark style food.
Right.
That's expensive, but people like the parties. A lot of people, I think, like the network and the parties probably more than they like standing up in a booth all day long talking to people or trying to bribe them into the booth to take a demo. I I I've been to Vegas so many times, probably just like you guys, that there are my own little personal things that I like about Vegas and a whole lot of things that I just don't care for.
Mm.
I'm not a gambler. If I ever gamble at all, I'm just wasting money in a slot machine, maybe because I'd like to have a free cold beer. I also don't drink that much. The older I get, the more alcohol just hates me, and so and I'm fine with that. And all the other things that you can do that the car business, unfortunately, there's still plenty of guys in the car business that like to do other things that are plentiful in Vegas. That's also not my scene. Um, so
Do you care
but
to elaborate on what you're talking about? I'm just kidding.
you
Kidding,
know,
kidding.
so yeah,
Um,
I'd be like, I think Nelly wrote a song that was kind of, something like that.
well, I have enjoyed some of these great parties too. I've seen some really big name bands. It's fun because they're catered. You got food and drink, and a lot of times you're seeing somebody really cool, and there might be 400 people in the room. I mean, it's a small kind of gathering. It's great. Of course, as a vendor, you got to have connections. In fact, my connection to most of the great parties was supposed to be on the podcast tonight,
Mhm.
but he's busy with other things. But Carl, what's out of all the NADA parties that you've been to, what was the coolest one and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I will say this, and not because he's on the show, but uh, Sean hosts a karaoke party at a dive bar, specifically in Vegas. I don't know if you've done it in other cities, but maybe you have. But it's such an intimate thing. It's a karaoke night where it's just industry people open to everybody, right? In the whole, I mean, we're talking about thousands of people. That's not who shows up, but hundreds of people show up. And it's just after hours, after all the big hoopla, the big spenders and the OEMs and everything else, people meet up and they just sing their hearts out. And it's a community of just diehard either car business lovers or car lovers who just come in and just, you know, belly up to the bar for some cheap beers on their dime and just sing their hearts out. That to
Yeah.
me, I've only been to that once because it's can be late. But it's just such a cool environment because it's just like everyone's let their hair down. You're not in your fancy clothes. There's, the floor is all sticky and the place is all sweaty, but it's just a fun event.
The
My
the sh- the
issue is I mean, by the end of the day, standing in the booth, I'm exhausted. My feet feel like they're swollen about 4 times bigger than they should be. And all I want to do is go take a hot shower, put my feet up on a bunch of pillows, and get ready for the next day. But the parties are so unique and so cool that you somehow find the superhuman will to get back up and go see some things. But I mean, one of mine that just stands out is Cheap Trick in a
Mm,
very small venue. But I've
I was
seen
there.
Doobie Brothers, Lenny Kravitz, Brett
Hmm.
Michael.
Yep.
Get to see some pretty cool events. Sean, next time you do your karaoke one, though, I got to be there because the king of rock and roll lives within my soul, and I must express him.
Oh my goodness, then you definitely have to go. We weren't going to do it this year. NADA is an interesting place to compete if you're going to throw a party. But I started getting text messages and DMs from people like, "Hey, are you doing it?" And I was like, and this was like 2 weeks before NADA. I was like, okay, give me 48 hours. And Carl knows enough about it that he knows that the origin of the karaoke-thon is Joe Webb. I know Carl knows Joe. Stan, I don't know if you know Joe Webb, but Joe Webb, 20 years ago, was just kind of not interested in the corporate party vibe. If there wasn't a cool band, it's actually kind of lame. And he was like, maybe there's just a handful of us that would want to go and find a dive bar that has karaoke and it'll be cheap and we'll just buy our own beers or whatever.
Yeah.
And six turned into 20 and 20 turned into 50 and 50 turned into 100. And our once little anti-corporate party for, on the down low all of a sudden caught fire. And the last several years, including this year, this was the 20th. Joe hasn't been as available in the last 5 or so years to even be there, so I have kept it going for many years. And this year, in 48 hours, I made a few calls. I had 5 sponsors. Nobody pays for their own drinks. The floor isn't sticky anymore, by the way, Dino's. But um, the uh, the sponsors were amazed that in a 2 week period, for far less than anything else they could have done on their own. They had an instant party that already has an audience that everybody loves. And we had even custom lanyards made with these cool graphics where my buddy Brent Weiss made a graphic for the karaoke-thon that looked just so similar to Zach Galifianakis's character in The Hangover, except for no
Mm.
shirt on and a duck like kids floaty pool floaty standing on like a highway in the desert of Vegas somewhere. And I used Suno to write a song exclusively about the event. I customized lyrics about every single one of the vendors, giving them shout outs and telling the listeners of the song to go and check them out at their booth numbers.
Oh,
And
cool.
so all of those vendors, all five of them, and a few of them were first time exhibitors at NADA, now had a big wad of lanyards with passes to say, hey, come out to the karaoke thon. We're sponsoring. It was a it was a blast, very well attended, and some new people that had never been before who got up on that stage and blew people's minds with how talented they are. Like you find
Yeah.
out that there are
Great.
some really great singers. So I can't wait for you to go to your first karaoke thon stand. You're gonna love
Uh,
it.
uh, yeah. My claim to fame, I guess, in the karaoke world, Carl, I don't know if you were at True Car at this time, but when I was working at True Car, they would put on some pretty good employee parties. And one year for our Christmas party, we rented out the Austin City Limits Theater uh, for our party, which is, they have, there's a TV show, the Austin City Limits TV show shot there, and they have, great big acts and everything there. But so we rented out the theater. We had our party there, and there was a karaoke band. So I got to sing with a live band. So I can officially say I have performed at the Austin City Limits Theater.
Ooh.
That's cool.
So,
That's very cool.
I'm kind of a big deal in my own mind.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, it was kind of fun. Well, cool. So back to NADA. Anything else that stood out this year that was different than any other years?
I, I got one, Sean. I don't know if you noticed this. It was announced, and this will be interesting how it's sees. So finally, Salesforce has entered the automotive space CRM world. So they're somehow partnering with cars.com. And so Salesforce is now going to be in the CRM space. So that is the biggest CRM company in the world, I believe,
In
is
the
now
beta
going to
my
be
existence.
able to be in the automotive space. I don't know how that's going to play out. We've talked about it for years and years and years. Like, why aren't they? And we know just because I think all of us have used it at different companies, it's expensive per license, but somehow they're trying to figure it out. So that one's going to be interesting to watch
All
from
right.
that perspective. Um, and then the only other thing that, because Sean's been pounding this into my brain for the last couple of years is, and I watched it firsthand, right? So people spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to present and host and display at NADA, right? Well, if you're a dealer and you need services, right? I have to buy a CRM, I have to buy a DMS, I have to buy some marketing. You go there looking for a deal. You would have bought it with or without NADA, right? But then they offer these massive discounts. So as a dealer, as a shopper, as a buyer, that is the place to go because you are going to buy these products and services regardless. And you go there and you spend some time and pay your fee to get in, but you're going to save. I mean, some of these contracts, Stan, are $10, $20, $30,000 a month, and you're going to save 30% off of that. You just paid for your trip 10 times over. So I wonder if anyone's done math, Sean, back to your kind of championing this, be careful how you spend at NADA. Like I spent $1 million to be at NADA Cox, and then I discounted all my stuff that people were going to buy anyway, 30%. Yeah, I signed up a bunch of stuff so I can show the powers that be, the spend. But did it really make sense? I don't know. I don't think the math justifies
It's a
the ROI.
great it's a great observation. It's one of the reasons why I built a trade show ROI calculator on my company's website. I don't know that it's been out there for a year, but I was telling you guys before we went live, about some other things that I have built that are B2B marketing tools. The first the first things that I vibe coded into existence that were useful for me in conversations I have a lot was a trade show ROI calculator and a customer acquisition cost calculator. The trade show ROI calculator is really something that you could do pre-planning or post show. And to your point, when you're discounting it 20, 30 or more percent, you have to calculate that math when you decided, well, how many badge scans did you get? How many deals did you write? Were they truly attributed to the show? Were they already shopping before? Were they already in pipeline? If they were already in pipeline and you had talked to them two or three times, it's not fair to give all credit or attribution to the show, right? But a lot of people will do that because otherwise their CFO or whoever handles finances in their company's head will explode. But this particular tool walks through just a series of questions and cost to be there, and like all in costs, travel and expenses, not just the booth, but how much it costs for the real estate to put it on, how much it costs for you to have electric, whatever level of internet you had, all those things. And then gives you basically whether or not you had a positive or a negative gain, and how many deals you really needed actually to break even. That's why it can be used as a pre-show tool as well. So you can actually calculate all your costs and say, we're going to need to write 10 deals from this show if we want to be able to just break even. I have found that most people don't want to touch that tool because they know that the trade show math will
Yeah.
make them crazy, which is true. There were also a couple other things about NADA that I wanted to mention. The West Hall is the newer part of the convention center in Vegas, and so everybody that was in West Hall, I think, felt that it was the first place where people are starting. North Hall, back in the other building that's been there for years, it made it, even though there was a walkway that you could walk, it was a long walk to get from one to the other. You could take the Vegas Loop, which is the Texas underground tunnel that's bored between a few little spots around there around the convention center. That certainly speeds it up. But if there were a lot of people in line, then you're waiting there. So if you were walking back and forth, and I did it twice to be able to go back and forth and see some clients, that was, not that it's bad to have to walk, but I think that vendors that felt like North Hall was on its own island, instead of feeling like that was a bad thing, I heard a lot of people that were in North Hall that said, yeah, it did feel like we were like kind of out on our own, destination, but it was good. It felt like its own thing. And I did go there a couple of times, and it was very vibrant. There was a lot of people there. It didn't feel like there was an imbalance on either of those floors, at least when I was in those buildings. So I thought that was interesting because a lot of people have said, like, if you're not in West Hall, like, forget it. No one's coming to North Hall. That was not my experience. It felt like there were people in both, and plenty of dealers and lots of booth traffic. So that felt good. Another thing, though, that I think we definitely have to mention about NADA, there were more people podcasting than ever before, and
Mm.
um, that's becoming a point of contention for me because we produce podcasts for businesses that they should own themselves, as opposed to renting somebody else's brand and audience, hoping that your brand is going to poke through theirs. And it may, I don't know if it's a controversial take or not. If anybody's got, wants to fight me on it, let's go. But there are so many big media brands now that offer very, very expensive podcast segments that for the life of me, I don't know who writes these checks and still keeps a job because the engagement on these is not great. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh yeah, we did one of these and we got all this business from, being on these podcasts." But that's only half of it. There's also people who are not media companies, but they have podcasts in automotive, and they talk to anybody and everybody that wants to be on their podcast as if, as a host, they're an expert or even conversationally literate enough to have a conversation with people about all these different topics. And so what they're creating is just, it's garbage. Like, it's not useful, it's not helpful. And if you're going to podcast as part of your business, it absolutely should be squarely focused on providing insight, the why behind what you do, all of the types of educational moments that you can deliver to people so that they really understand why you do what you do, how you do it, what differentiates you, why you care, why they should care about you, establishing your thought leadership, establishing the recognition of your subject matter experts as people like, oh my goodness, that guy knows cybersecurity better than anybody. I've never heard anybody talk about that, as opposed to just these lazy questions and people who can't actually have a conversation about a topic that they really don't know anything about, yet they're podcasting in booths and paying people. Companies are paying to be on them. And for the life of me, I feel like I'm on a collision course with some of this eventually, to actually make sure that the industry has some idea that, especially the companies that pay to be on these podcasts, that it's a massive waste of their money. For the same amount of money, they could actually do so much more to benefit their businesses. So that, for me, I was like astonished by how much people were podcasting. But it's just, there's so much happy talk and, yeah, hey everybody, and everyone wants to be a, their version of a motivational speaker, and just, speak all these good things into existence, as if they can do that instead of talking about what really matters from the company's perspective. It was it was mind-boggling.
What
Well, I
I'm
can tell
hearing you
you the
say,
person
Shaun.
who,
Oh, go ahead, Carl.
sorry, Stan, I meant to tell you about all that, Stan, because there was a bunch of that I did notice that. So, Shaun, thank you for the reminder. I will tell you the car dealership guys were printing money those 3 days because they were stinking everywhere. Now, that being said, I want to collaborate with them on some stuff too, because they're doing a good job of having, their own show, their own brand, their own thing. But for the person that hired them for that one time who's doing nothing else, you're exactly right. That it was just a ego pride. Look who I got in my booth. I talked to, it was funny because the one morning I was looking across at Odessa or Car, one of those, and they had a very well-known podcaster, and I was like, what is a one-time shot? You just spent $10,000, $20,000 to have these guys there for an hour. I wish I got that money, but it's not going to do anything long term. And that's why, I appreciate, Shaun, what you do for brands and for businesses and for stories, just that long-term commitment. And even what you showed us before we got on, like, is it a fit? I'm not just going to go help somebody who's not going to do some work along the way, because I don't know everything for your business and your customer. You got to contribute. Yeah, I can ask you questions and tee it up and edit it and format it and do the sound and all that stuff and post it for you, but I need your freaking brain to help me sell what you do. So,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what I'm hearing is that not all the podcasts are as good as what drives you. Is that the bottom line that I'm getting from you guys? I'm just kidding. Hey guys,
absolutely.
we got to wrap this up. Shaun, man, we just got to have you on more often. There's so many subjects that we could cover with you, and I learn something every single time that I have a chance to have a conversation with you. Carl, always good to see you, buddy. Is there anything from either one of you that you would like to say about NADA? By the way, Shaun, you're the only person I ever heard call it NADA.
Nada?
NADA. But anyway, any last thoughts on NADA from 2026 before we say goodbye?
I thought it was a great buzz. To Shaun's point, there was an energy there that I haven't experienced the last couple of years. So I don't know how that's going to get chilled or dampened, being in it's Orlando, I think, next year, which is kind of on an island. But I do want to talk about Shaun next time we're on. Shaun, you did give us both a challenge in regards to some new tools that Stan and I are definitely going to play with between now and our next visit. But I also want to talk about your YouTube channel, because I know that your whole life is brand building and video, and you're a friggin' PhD in LinkedIn. But I want to see how that's either detracted you from posting more on YouTube or encouraged you. So I do want to talk about that, because we are a YouTube channel, and I think there's some learnings and some collaboration there that we can do in the future.
For
Let's
sure.
get together for another episode soon. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think that'd be fantastic. And if you guys haven't seen this, I've talked about it a little bit on LinkedIn, but it is live now. A free LinkedIn research paper with playbooks for the personal profile and the company profile, based on a research project that I worked on for a couple of months. It's 50 pages, and you can download the PDF from our website, and it tells you what's worked and what's not working and why it worked then and what works now. Goes back about 5 years up to current, and then it literally tells you for your personal profile what posts, what kind of posts, how frequent, like what matters, what doesn't. Tells you things that you should also be aware of if you're one of those antagonists, you're an agitator, and you just like to start prairie fires. You're going to get suppressed, even if you post all the time and follow the playbook. But if you're that, LinkedIn's a lot smarter these days. It keeps getting smarter.
Where can
We
we
stay
find that? What's your website? Let's plug your website here.
If you go to hiredgunsagency.com, there's no spaces or special spelling. It's hiredgunsagency.com. And if you go down to the tools and resources, you'll see a form for a free download. And normally I don't gate any content like that, but we are in the process of building a newsletter format for some things that are launching this year. We're developing a couple of projects that I think the industry is going to love. A couple of new podcasts are going to drop into the hired guns ecosystem, and we thought let's give somebody something really really valuable in exchange for that email address, and then also make it really easy for them to also say, hey, that's great, but once they get their first piece of content from us from their email inbox, if they don't want it, we're going to make it very very obvious that if you don't want this, opt out. That's cool too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right on. Shaun, thank you, man. You got so many things going. You're a busy guy, and for you to take time out like this, it's just I hope you know that it's very much appreciated.
I
Thank you.
do, and I have no problem. It's my pleasure, especially when it's guys like you. I like hanging with you guys. There's other people that would ask for this time. I always said no.
All
So
right. Carl,
You're the
always good to see you,
best.
buddy.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks
have a
everybody
great.
for joining us on this edition of What Drives You. And as always, we like to say, be good humans.